also have the honor of introducing Comptroller Glenn Hegar today. As a member of the FOI Foundation Board, it's my pleasure to do so. I feel a particular connection to Comptroller Hegar for a couple of reasons. One is he was the state representative from Katy, which is where I went to high school. Another is that we both have boy-girl twins and are enjoying all of the wonderful treasures that come along with that, although his are closer to pre-tween age than mine are, so good luck with that. But as many of you know, Comptroller Hegar is a sixth-generation Texan. He has a tremendous track record of public service. He's served in the House, he served in the Senate. In his final term in the Senate, he oversaw state and local revenue issues that helped to cut $1 billion in taxes. Thank you, I needed that savings. As chair of the Sunset Advisory Commission, he also worked to eliminate inefficiencies in state government, and now as the comptroller, what I absolutely love about what he's doing there, he is making government more efficient. He's also making it more transparent, and something we talked about again this morning was his fabulous Texas Transparency Star program, which rewards local governments who put up information about how they're spending your taxpayer dollars online. It rewards them in gaining different stars for the varying amount of information that they offer. It's phenomenal, and we need to get more folks engaged in that. But I will let Comptroller Hegar tell you more about it, and please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. It's good to be with you today. Now, Don, I can read your notes. Do you want me to go over them now for you since you didn't have your glasses? I can go through your notes, and let's see, as you were speaking earlier, you know, a lot of times at events I go and give a speech, which kind of reminds me to go back to one time talking about when I used to represent Laura as Fort Bend County, being in one of my 3 counties in the Texas House. I'll never forget one of the very first times that I went to give a speech after the first legislative session, and being that there were, I think, 3 state senators and there were 3 state representatives from that county, went to an event. And so being the last one on the totem pole, I was the last one to speak. So I had my notes, and I was so ready to talk. And the first Senator Armbruster, spoke, and he talked about water and natural resources, so I scratched that issue off my list. And then we had Rodney Ellis, and he talked about various issues, and I scratched those. And then we went to the state rep and the state rep. And eventually, my notes were like this white paper. There was nothing left, and it was my turn. And so I got up, and this is kind of, I thought about saying some jokes, but after all years, this is kind of where I'm at. I have no jokes left to say. I stood up, and I told everybody, I said, well, I had this to talk about, and this to talk about, and this to talk about, and Dora Leva talked about public education, so I won't talk about that. And I said, I feel like that kid who's a sixth-string quarterback. The game is about 63-0. There's 25 seconds left in the clock. And the coach says, Hegar, it is your turn. And so I had to scrounge, find my helmet. It's my opportunity. And I go up and I go, now, coach, what do I do? What's the play? And the coach said, you're supposed to kneel. So I'm not going to talk about colonoscopies. I'm not going to buy chickens or any of that whatsoever. I scratched those off my list. Actually, to be very straight with you, I am elected. They were never on my list, okay? When you're former, you talk about those. When you're still elected, you leave them off your speech. But also, it kind of, as you were talking, Laura, and I was thinking about, you know, similarities. Fred, you're like myself. You've definitely married up, without a doubt. I'll tell you, my wife, very wonderful lady. I mean, I'm so fortunate I can't even begin to stress over and over, and that's not what I'm here to talk about. But as you were talking about being elected, I'll have to share one other story. I never forget when I was first elected to the Texas House of Representatives. We were being sworn in. You're very excited to be there. My wife, essentially, I wouldn't have been in the position to be elected if it really wasn't for her. I mean, she worked as hard or harder than I did, went to so many things, and I know that I was elected in part because of Dara. And we didn't have children at the time, and so we didn't have to worry about kids on the house floor. But my grandparents, on the Hegar side of the family, my grandmother was very sick, and she wasn't going to be with us much longer. So it was very important for me to have her on the house floor. So obviously I needed her and my grandfather there. But you only have 2 chairs. So I got 3 people, 2 chairs. What do you do? So I decided my wife and I would squeeze in onto the house floor on my chair. So she was in the top corner, and I was kind of squeezed in the side there. And I stood up and I took the oath of office. And gentlemen, if any of you are married and you have like a really dumb moment in your marriage that you regret, yeah, I had one at that moment. So I took the oath of office, and I thought it was cute. I thought I was being funny. I like to have some humor in life. I think humor is really important in life with all the serious issues that we deal with. And so I sat down, I leaned up, and I whispered in my wife's right ear, and I said, "You can call me honorable now." She didn't laugh. Still to this day, I wake up every once in a while thinking about my wife's look on her face, thinking, "You want me to do what?" So when I was sworn in a couple years later to the Texas House again, guess what I did? I took the oath of office and I sat down and I shut up. When I was in the Senate, did the same thing, in the Comptroller's position. And so, yeah, whatever you do, don't tell Laura that, okay? I don't think that's going to work out well for y'all. But thank you for the comments on transparency, which is what I'm here to talk about today. Before coming into this position in 2015, it was very evident that my predecessors had worked on a variety of issues on transparency, and this office, the Comptroller's office, was really a lead agency in transparency, not just here in Texas, but recognized across the nation, in part because in 2007, we had put a portal together about where does your money go, which is extremely important. I was proud when I was in the Senate to work on that legislation and put that authority over at the Comptroller's office to open those books up to the state's treasury. And so where does your money actually go? And then quickly followed upon that is where does the money come from? Not just the expenditure side, but the revenue side. Where are those monies at? And when I came into this position, and still to this day, people ask me over and over, so what is one of the things that's most important to you? And the thing that I highlight to my staff or wherever I go, it's customer service. And I think regardless of whatever we do, customer service is at the very top. And as long as you keep that mindset in order, whether it's the taxpayers, whether it's the people that we interface with, it doesn't matter. As long as you keep that in front and center, that's moving the agency of what our mission and our purpose is in the right direction. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was reevaluate, refocus our efforts, not just in relation to the taxpayers, not just in relation to policymakers, their staff, but also in addition to the media, the people that we interface to get information out. And I challenged my team to reevaluate how we use all modes of communication to be nimble and change with times, because modes of communication are changing so rapidly with technology. And today, I wanted us not only to put infograms out of just charts, easy to read information, just a one page that you can see and it's explanatory, but also to give the in-depth analysis. Because there are certain people who want to tear down into those issues to understand it from an in-depth level, whether it's taxation, whether it's the Treasury, whether it's the economy, those core constitutional missions that we have, or even in addition to that, just issues that are generally important to the people of the state of Texas. So do we do all of those things? In the first year when I was in office, we came up with the Transparency Team 5-year plan. And that plan had 2 main objectives. One, connecting local government data sets with CPA's transparency efforts. And number 2, staffing that team appropriately so we can meet that objective. Our long-term plan under that 5-year plan is 1, standardizing all current and future reports and shift our reports to a single platform. One of the issues is to make sure that you have uniformity for external users to be able to utilize that information and ease the burden of reporting. So a single platform will help us get there over the long term. It also eliminates confusion, because if you look across, there's all these different platforms, and having to go from one to another, it's important that we move in that direction. Establish a one-stop shop for public transparency portals, which will allow everyone to have easier access and understandability of those issues. And then also to appoint a chief data officer, someone who is working to push us in that direction so we know and can continue to stay with those best practices. As you know, my office has a wide array of transparency programs. Say, for example, let me go through a couple of those, which many of you are aware of, the transparency data sheets and reports, whether that's debt at a glance profiles, hotel occupancy tax reporting, public pension search tool, also state expenditure by county database, eminent domain reporting and profiles, upcoming bond elections and results, local government debt reporting, as well as just most recently here in the last month, our special purpose district financials and tax reporting. When I entered into office, one of the things that was a frustration, and it was just the things of times had changed. We had all these different websites. I think we had 12 or 15 websites. Well, no one goes to a website. They do a search and you go to a landing page now. And we really had never reorganized all of those websites to try to say, okay, how do we put this together? How do we use current technology and be able to make sure that we change it over time so it stays up with the time, user friendliness, user ability, searchability. So we did a complete reorganization, and I'm proud that the team that we have at CPA, our staff worked on that and accomplished that essentially with our own internal resources, our own current people, and got it to where it was much more user-friendly today, where people can actually easier access that information. And highlighted on that area is what? Transparency issues, right there highlighted on our website, or you can do a search of texastransparency.org. Either way gets you there in the same way. Our 5-person team that is solely dedicated to transparency do a couple different things. They collect, verify, maintain those transparency data, create the reports and design search tools, and also serve as a point of contact for yourselves or anyone else as they're trying to gain information. As Laura mentioned, we have the Transparency Stars program, which when I came into office, it was important to me that we had the old Platinum program, which was a good program. However, I kind of got tired of every local entity says, hey, we're CPA Comptroller Platinum certified, look at us. And I thought, oh my gosh, if everybody's certified, what does this mean anymore? And in part of it was just important to raise the bar up. And so we raised the bar. I challenged the team to come up with some metrics, some processes to raise the bar back up, because you want to make sure you're continuing to elevate and raise that bar up over and over for transparency and reevaluate it quite frequently. So in doing that, our focus of opening local government books to the public and providing a clear, meaningful financial and other information to the public through summaries, charts, interactive tools, specific criteria calls for elements including dedicated transparency sections on your websites, transparency area summaries, visualizations, downloadable documents and data, as well as other information needed to provide context. The awardees, they receive a insignia for their website, and then also, in addition to that, a media packet to let them know and push out that they are reaching that star. The first one that any entity can get from a local level has to do with traditional finances. And to date, out of all the entities across the state of Texas, we have 140 local entities that have actually met that threshold, whether it's cities, counties, school districts, 140 to date. So we reduced the number by changing the program, but we've elevated the bar significantly. Once that first star is received, then you're able to move on to some of the other stars, whether that ends up being debt obligations. To date, we have 64 entities that have met that bar, or whether it's public pensions, 22 entities have met that star and that bar, or contracts and procurement. We talk a lot about, you talk a lot about, the legislature talks about contracts, procurement processes. We in my shop, one of my divisions, handles contracts and procurement, so we try to focus on that significantly, of educating other agencies, educating the legislature on how we make that better, because at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, whose money is it? It's the taxpayers' dollars. And we are the fiduciary of that. And so opening the books up to contract and procurement is really critical. And to date, as I mentioned, 16 entities have had that star. And then 12, the fifth one, is economic development incentives. Pulling back, opening up, and shining a brighter light on those economic development incentives is as more critical today than ever before. To date, of 5-star recognitions, I think it's important to know that we have several cities that have met that. The city of McKinney, city of Richardson, Arlington, Rolette, Gainesville, and also Mesquite. So I'm very proud for them that they have reached to make all 5. Now, we also have one school district that's won 4, Lovejoy ISD. However, you say, well, they didn't hit the 5th. Well, but they don't have economic development incentives, so actually they are at the top of the bar that they can be at, which I think is important. So let's talk about a couple other things. One of the concerns that I have and my team is looking at is monitoring our transparency data, because on our website, it's underutilized. It's not utilized to the level that we want it to be utilized, nor I think that the public should be able to have it. And so trying to figure out why is it underutilized and what can we do to raise up that utilization of the things that we have out there for transparency purposes. In 2017, for example, the transparency homepage had 183,517 unique views. Now, this is a state over 27 million people, but only 183,000 unique views. Really important data for taxpayers to know. And then even more significantly, that's just the homepage. That's not actually each report. And those views have even been lower. Our local bond election results, not shocking, that's the highest view. And what is the lowest? Pensions, which, if any of you are paying attention, pensions is one of the greatest issues that is a threat to any state, any local governmental entity. Some of them are in very good shape. Earlier today, I was down in Bastrop with the other side of the rotunda, some House members, talking to them about various issues. And one of the things that is extremely passionate and important to me is we have an economic stabilization fund, a state savings account, that when I make a transfer in about another 45 days from General Treasury over there for severance tax collections from this last year, we send, after certain thresholds, a certain amount of money into the state savings account. We send a certain amount over to the transportation fund per as the voters approved 4 years ago to split those dollars because we had so much money going in the state savings account off oil and gas severance taxes. I'm going to transfer almost $1.4 billion into both accounts. That means our state savings account is going to have a fund of about $11.9 billion in it, which is the most a record it has ever had. And then on top of that, if you look at all 50 states across the nation, Texas' ESF fund is over 20% of the balance of all 50 states. Yet, I had no idea, and I'm embarrassed to say, when I was a member in the House, when I was a member of the Senate, I had no idea that statutorily wise, my office takes that money and just puts it in the Treasury pool. You just go, well, what does that mean? What that means is it's overnight cash. Overnight cash means $12 billion. It's like burying it on the Capitol lawn. It's not doing anything. Now, don't get a shovel and go because it's really not there. So that's not an investigative story for you to cover because it's not there. But the point back to pensions is I've told the legislature last session, and I'm pushing very strongly, for us to retool the way we manage those funds and manage those funds to be able to set a certain dollars up to do what? To resolve the pension issues that we have in this state. Are we to the level of Illinois? No. Are we to the level of Connecticut? No. But are we at a point of crisis? No. But will we be in a few years? Yes. And if we don't, guess what? A few years when you report, people look back and go, wait, but you idiots were driving the train and you didn't do anything. And so it's amazing to me, my point of one of the things that has the least amount of user views of the data we have, ironically, is the one issue that has the biggest potential impact to the state's credit rating and long-term viability as an economy. Now let's talk about balancing open government and finite resources. As I mentioned, that's a concern, so we're re-looking at how do we get that data out, because like yourself, we only have a certain amount of resources, and where do we put those to make sure that we're putting them in the right areas? We have a duty. One of the issues that I wanted to mention, and you deal with this, in privacy and security. People ask me, say, Glenn, you've got 2,900 employees, you've got 26 divisions, you're looking over the economy. What is the thing that concerns you the most? And the area that concerns me the most is holding the taxpayers' data, your data, the people's data of the state of Texas, and making sure it's private and it's secure. And you go, well, wait, we want it open. Well, but also I think we're all aware of those security threats that are out there. And that's one that causes me to lose sleep. And I'm not saying you're the threat. Please don't say that's not what I said. But there are a lot of bad people out there that want to get those resources and that data and use it for very ill gain. And so how do we make sure, my point being is that we work with you, that we work with the public to get the information that's needed, but at the same time holding it and making sure it's secure, because that's the fiduciary duty that we have. And then open records request, I wanted to mention that state agencies have an obligation to uphold and enforce freedom of information laws. Many in this room obviously think my agency, other agencies, we can do a better job. And I would agree with that. I'd read not too long ago from the president of the Texas Association of Press that was saying that freedom of information laws are, quote, under siege. We all know that examples of state agencies that provide broad applied exemptions, that charge exorbitant fees, also that have delays, backlogs, unnecessary referrals over to the Attorney General's office, and all of those issues, it's hard for me to say how to easily resolve them. But what I can say, and I hope that you would appreciate this in this room and some of my staff that's here, we have a very dedicated quality team that wants to make sure we're responsive. We have communications back and forth, and we also have a open data forum where we have the communications division, open records, communications, IT, where we are trying to figure out how do we get ahead of the curve, not when the clock is running on getting information out, but how do we get in front of it, and how do we make sure that we are being responsive to people and what you need. I can attest without a doubt that I've got a great group of staff that works at the Comptroller's office. I would like to be able to say that I hired every one of them, but a lot of them were there long before I got there. My job is to make sure they're empowered to do their job, empowered to work with you, that we can get the best information out and make sure that at the beginning and the end of the day, the taxpayer is protected. So with that, I will stop. Happy to open it up for questions. One last thing, you were talking about jokes of engineers. Made me think about my son. I think he's going to be a banker. And the reason being, I'll tell you the short story and then I'll move on, is my oldest daughter, my 13-year-old, she wants to either be an Olympic swimmer or a marine biologist, being that I think she's not going to quite get up to my manly stature of not quite 5'9". A little shorter. I'm not sure Olympic swimmers in her future, but I'm not telling her that because I want her to continue to pursue her love and her interest. Marine biology might be. The youngest daughter, a sports announcer without a doubt. So she's going in the field some way, but it's in sports. I was telling Fred earlier that we left the A&M Clemson game the other day. She was not too happy. I don't know if y'all know we missed a 2-point conversion to score and send the game into overtime. My wife and I both are an Aggie, so we were at the game with the kids. I was walking to the car with my youngest daughter, Madera, and her twin brother, and the other one was behind. And we were talking about, and she said, "I can't believe those refs. They did not see the ball didn't go through the end zone. It went out of bounds. They didn't call the other play where the receiver pushed our guy down. Da-da-da-da-da." And I said, well, Julia, I said, we missed a field goal. We had one block. That's 6 points. That could have won the game. There's a multitude of things that can go into a game. It's not just one play. And she looked at me, and don't repeat I said this, please, telling the press that. She looked at me and she said, yeah, but I'm still pissed. She's 10. I looked at her, and, you didn't want to give away my kind of like, oh, my gosh, what did you just say? I looked at her, and I said, what was that? And she looked at me again, very correct and very effective with her verbiage, and she said, I said I'm pissed. And I said, we do not use that language. And she went, why? And I thought, it's unacceptable for a 10-year-old. So you go, what does that have to do with the banker? Nothing. I just want to tell you those stories. So get to my banker. My son, a few years ago, I was on the road. I traveled. I got home. My wife had a bright idea several years ago about the kids. She said, hey, how about we have the kids go, we'll give them a few dollars. They can go to the school store. They can buy a few items for their siblings to put in their Christmas stockings. I was like, great idea. So we did that one year. We've done it several years. And, it's just silly stuff. Pens, pencils, erasers, you name it. So I got home, and sitting right as you walk in the kitchen, my wife, she was standing there, and we had 3 little brown bags, and I figured it was from the school store. And I said, oh, awesome. I said that they went to shopping today. She said, yes, I gave them each $5. I said, great, let's see what they got. So I looked what the oldest one, Clara, got for the 2 siblings, and, it was $5, and they have scratched out how much each item cost, and so there was no money left over. I was like, okay, great, that's great. So then I looked at Julia, my younger daughter, and again, a few items here and there, and it was the items, how much it cost, and then $0. So okay, great, it's only $5, that's great. And then I looked at my son, and I was like, man, he's such my kid. Why is he my kid? Because he's cheap. So he had $1 for one sister, $1 for the next sister. And then there were $3 left. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's literally my child. He's cheap. This is awesome. And you go, what does that have to do with a banker? Well, here's the thing about a banker. A banker was going to get their new suit a few years ago, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story on Jonah in just a second. Went to get a brand new suit, was getting it fitted, and the new banker said, wait, there's something wrong with my suit. There's no pockets. And the tailor said, nope, perfect suit, jacket fits, pants fit, perfect look. Said, no, really, there's something wrong with this suit. I don't know what, but there's something wrong. They went back and forth. Then finally, the new banker said, I know what it is. There's no pockets. The suit is supposed to have pockets. And the tailor said, yeah, but you're going to be a banker, correct? And they said, yes. And they go, no, bankers don't have pockets because you're always putting your hands in other people's pockets. So that's why I think Jonah, what Jonah, the rest of the story is not just he's cheap, $1 for a sister, $2 for a sister, $3 left out of 5. And I said, that's my son. And my wife said, oh, ask me how much money he gave me back. And I go, well, there's $3 left. And she just smiled, and I said, how much money did you get back? And she said, he was very proud to give me back $1. He's going to be a banker because he kept 2 for himself. And I was like, wow, he might be the controller of public accounts. We like to keep money in the treasury. But anyway, that has nothing to do with FOIA or transparency other than making sure you do know where your money's going. So, questions, comments, complaints? Anybody in the room? If not, going once, going twice. Thank y'all for letting me be here. Congratulations to all the awardees. I think that's fantastic, and thank you for what you do, because one of the things I do think about today quite frequently is that in today's world that we live in, it's pretty contentious. And it concerns me greatly that, there's so much stuff that is just sent out via these, and it's very one-sided. And so the things that I talk to people about all the time is that, yes, I'm elected via one party, but you got to see what the other side says. You have to see what other people are thinking. And it might actually open your eyes in having a conversation and getting to a better result. James Madison, working to get to a better result, not for himself, but for society. And so the thing that I ask is to continue to push that we have that right information out, because if there's really going to be any hope for the next generation in this state and in this country, it's going to be making sure that we have that information out where people can make real decisions, not just policymakers in the building, but the public at large. So thank you. May God bless you and keep Texas safe.